Welcome everybody to a special episode. We have been going back and forth in our group chat. We wanted to have an AI episode where apparently Andy thinks he's going to take me down for some reason. I don't
Who
know.
will?
He's going to bring the fire. He thinks that I'm super anti AI, which is not the case.
Hmm.
But we just kind of wanted to get together, talk about things. I'd say probably I don't know if you guys want to give like some backgrounds of like Andy and CK. I would probably say you guys are most of this group kind of in the AI circles and everything. If you want to, even Andy, like your background goes way past kind of this recent hype cycle that we're currently in. How deep have you been in your career so far in AI?
So I want to correct the record first. I did not say I was going to take you down. I said I was going to talk a
Okay.
ton of shit to you. Uh, and I plan on making this episode incredibly entertaining for our listeners. And I hope Julian and Siki will join me. Uh,
Whoa.
how long does my background go? I started Nanit about 10 years ago. We started it before deep learning was really a thing. We scaled that business and we do real-time computer vision in the cloud. Started a business called Vowel. Vowel, we were very focused on building what became agents and using transformer models. And now Vowel was acquired by Zapier, where I am director of AI. So it's gone. It's we've definitely gone through this. And in college, I took a major called decision and information analysis, which most people know as statistics. So it's been fun. It's been a good 10-year run. No one thought computer vision was going to work. No one thought NLP would work. And I guess now no one thinks AGI is going to work. And we'll see where we go. I don't really have a thesis on AGI today.
What can somebody give like a broad definition of AI? You think
Um,
AI is compared to like just computing in general?
so I think AI has become has I would say AI is advanced machine learning is probably the best way to think about it. When we started Nanit, we never would use the word AI. I think underpins most AI today and what most people think of AI is a large language model. I think you would contrast that to like a historical a smaller model. So I think most people think of like a GPT-4 as quote unquote AI. But people don't remember that we've been using smaller traditional BERT models for language summarization for, I don't know, the last 6 years, 5 years. I don't know when the BERT paper came out. So yeah, that I think is the layman's definition of AI today.
Would you consider it even broader? It's like basically replacing like humans with some sort of computer assisted technology.
I wouldn't say that. I think about AI as a helpful assistant. And I think it really focuses on augmenting the capabilities we have. I think it can help automate repetitive tasks. I have yet to see something that really can replace. And I think as we build and as I build, I've always focused on augmentation to be a helpful assistant.
What do you consider Siri and the Echo and all of the other voice assistants to be AI?
Yeah, voice assistants are definitely a language. They have some component of AI. I think what people they were mostly historically decision tree based. That's how most chatbots worked, and that's how most voice assistants worked. I think now we're starting to see what can be possible with much better models. And I think the best version of this is what we've seen in ChatGPT using the GPT-4o multimodal experience. And I think we're going to see some version of an upgraded Siri and a much upgraded Alexa come out later this year. I think
Right.
the rumor mill has it as Apple has struck a deal with OpenAI, and I think there's also been a number of papers published by Apple on the Realm models where they actually talk about running quote unquote AI on device using a much smaller model. So I think we're going to see a lot from Apple. We may see it in a couple at WWDC, so that may be in a couple days. Um, it may come later this year, and I think there is some rumors out there that Alexa is going to be completely re-architecting. I'd also expect to see Google re-architect Google Assistant or whatever that product is today.
Andy, just quickly, if you run it on device, give me a primer as to what changes. What if you're
Yeah.
running it on device? What value are you driving there?
Sure. So on device, the argument from Apple on device will be it's better for privacy.
Right.
It's better, and that'll be the Apple marketing slogan. That is how Apple has positioned this. There are a lot of pros to that argument. The reality is the model's going to have to be much smaller. You don't have as powerful of a GPU
Mhm.
on the actual iPhone, on my MacBook Pro. You can run, say, probably like a 7 billion parameter model, but you're not going to be able to run GPT-4 locally. It's just, it's too, they are too compute intensive um, today.
Today,
Now, we have
right.
seen people take, I believe we've seen people take Llama 3, the 7 billion parameter model, and be able to run it locally. So if you think about the difference, Llama 3 has a number of different models. I think it's a 70B, they have, which is 70 billion parameters. They also have a 7B, which is 7 billion parameters. And there's a rumored to be offered in the future a 300 billion or 400 billion parameter model. And you're able to run a 7 billion parameter model locally. You've seen a lot of that on GitHub. It's when you get to these much larger models, they're just so compute intensive, you can't run them locally. Now
Do
you
you-
can do other tricks to get it to make up to the performance. And Apple is showing with Realm how they could ingest um, a visual interface in a large language model, and they could do that potentially on device. And so it's a different way of thinking about the architecture.
Do you guys
it's
think, and let's hear from somebody other than Andy just showing off all of his knowledge that he's learned over at his
Brings the
pre
fire.
that was kind of boring, to be honest with you.
Ah,
But do you guys think that AI in general is like similar to other like computing paradigm shifts, like for example the PC or the web or mobile, or machine learning and everything like
yeah.
that? Can everybody agree to that
Well,
it's going to be like that, or just some nuance to it?
here's the one thing that I'll say is when you look at it now, it's so obvious that the exponential curve is so radically vertical that there's
Right.
very few places in history where there has been such a driving
Yeah.
of billions of users speed. So the result is just the same way the common thing that you used to say is when the iPhone 3 or whatever got GPS, no one could predict Uber. This is the thing you
Right.
used to say.
Right.
And so likewise, you just have a set of consequences that are not immediately obvious to us now. I've got this plant fucking, that is taking over my neighborhood. I live in front of a park. I'm like, I fucking hate this plant. It's disgusting. I see it everywhere I go. I have to kill it. I take one photo, boom, the solution is in front of me. And now I can kill 100 plants in my neighborhood at night so that nobody knows I'm doing it. And it's like there's like a
What
million,
the fuck?
there's a million things like that, right? There's a million things like that. So it's like, is it going to increase? Is it accelerating the ability for humans to capture knowledge? Yeah, it just did in like this really
Yeah.
local,
Yeah.
normal fashion. But what are the unintended consequences just from a productivity standpoint? It's impossible to know, but you know that they are enormous. And there's very few places where this curve of adoption has occurred so rapidly.
So I'll take the under on that. I don't think it's like any of those things that came before. And I think when I hear
Wow.
that is we're going to get spicy. It's how I know AI is actually underhyped, not overhyped.
You think it's underhyped?
I think it's actually underhyped. And
Really?
also
Okay.
that is why I think it's underhyped. So when people talk about AI as the internet, mobile, electricity, whatever it is,
Yeah.
the thing that kind of misses is every other technological platform revolution that's ever happened was a product of intelligence. We've never been able to harness intelligence itself. And so
Right.
this is a technology that can create new technologies in theory down the line. And that is a form of meta technology that we never seen before. So I think it's the greatest invention since fire, not since the internet.
Got it.
I love it. That's spicy. So I guess the pushback, I'll sit there and say, so what we saw over the last 2 years is we've seen such rapid improvement in models. So I guess the question is, do you think we're going to get there on a transformer model, or are we going to have our self-driving car moment very soon? So I mean, there
Well,
is
we do
the
today, to
bull
be clear.
is
SF, you could take a self-driving car.
yes, Kevin, but it took I don't know 9 extra years than people thought.
Yep.
I mean, the prediction was in 2015, 2016, at 2023, all cars would be self-driving.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
yes, in Phoenix and in San Francisco, last week I was able to hail in San Francisco a Waymo, and it was freaking cool. But we do not see broad-based adoption of self-driving cars. We have seen the edge, like almost Six Sigma events that have been difficult. And it's interesting to think about. Are we at a place where we're going to tap out the current research on current architectures and not actually get the productivity gains that we're expecting? I don't have an answer. I think it's a very open question right now.
Yeah, that would be my like biggest pushback on AI in general. Like I love how Siki kind of put it, like accessing the knowledge of like all humankind, or however he put it more succinctly than I did. But like, what is that time scale? When are we gonna actually get there? That would be my only pushback. And like the right now AI, in my opinion, is going through the kind of um the Gardner hype cycle. Kind of you have some cool technology. It's got really it goes over the peak of inflated expectations. You have this um uh trial of illusionment, and then you slowly kind of come out of that with some actual real use cases that people actually use. So like, is this going to take 20 or 30 years until we get there? Is this going to take 10 years? Like, I think right now some of the stuff is actually applicable. Like today you can get basically you can harness like what's on the internet, and you could write into ChatGPT and all of these cool things, and you could ask it questions, and you could communicate with things, and it could edit your articles and stuff like that, and you could create images and all of this like really cool stuff you couldn't do. But it's not obviously where everybody's expectations are thinking that it's going to go. So my only pushback would be like, how long is it going to get until we get to that point?
So I would say two things, right? The first one is, if you look back over the past like 40, 50 years and you looked at what the consensus timeline was for AGI, that, whether that's 100 years in the future, end of the, 2100s, the consensus timeline is going down linearly. So I think like 20 years ago, it was like 2060, right?
Yeah.
10 years ago, it was like maybe 2050. 5 years ago, we're looking at 2040 or so. Even in the last 5 years, that timeline went to right, like from 2035 to within this decade. And
Right.
so things are going actually way faster than people think. And the other thing about like, oh, AI is not quite doing all the things we expected it to. I would say, hold on a second. Like if we dropped in what you could do with AI today to someone 5 years ago and asked them,
Right.
if this is this AGI, they would say, holy crap. Absolutely, it is AGI. This is
That's true.
unbelievable. Wasn't even possible 5 years ago. And though, like I think whatever, sort of snapshot argument you take about what it can or can't do today is equivalent of complaining about hands or feet in image generation like 5 years ago.
Right.
Well, it's better now and it will continue to get better. If you ask Sam Altman whether, what's called the scaling laws will hold in the transformer architecture, I mean, he thinks he hasn't hit it yet. I mean, he's been like pretty open and vocal about this.
Right.
And so I think we'll see models improve for at least in the next like 2 or 3 years before we'll probably hit some kind of architectural limitation, but we might not need to.
Right.
Yeah.
Is this so for people listening? Obviously, we do this show for like first time founders or early founders. Should people just drop what they're doing? Like, even on this panel here, like if this is so important to like humankind is going to come so quickly, should we all drop what we're doing and create these
Yeah.
companies?
To me, the question is, this whole thing that's spreading around Twitter and every fucking email list at the moment is this whole end of software conversation, right? It's
Right.
like, do you need to build software? And what software still has a moat? Yet last week, Salesforce dropped
20%.
Salesforce stock 20%, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Salesforce, right? But there's a set of other major public comps for which it happened likewise. And so you're looking at these and you're going, okay, so this is some kind of market sentiment. Is it a thoughtful market sentiment? Like, we don't really know, but is someone starting out today deciding whether to start a business? Are they post I need to be a developer, or are they still I need to be a developer? Like, directionally speaking,
Right.
how does someone act on this information?
Well, so I'll say something a little counterintuitive. The beauty of this revolution is it empowers you to build an AI enabled company. You don't have to build an AI company. You have
Right.
to build AI enablement. And I mean, the best example I've seen from AI enablement has actually come from Siki. Siki took the Zapier platform, and he actually built what I would call AI STR in a box. He used model calls to GPT-4. He's automatically looking at the leads and determining if they're worth reaching out to. And he built this all using no code. And yes, it took him a little bit of time, but I consistently talk about this example because you don't have to be an engineer here. You have to understand prompt engineering. You have to understand how software fits together, and you
Mhm.
have to use AI in your ops stack and in your marketing stack. And I think what you're going to actually see is the next generation of great companies are AI enabled. They aren't necessarily selling a service that is AI that is AI, but their product is AI enabled. And because of that, they actually have a better margin profile. And
Right.
I hope you start building these type of services on a product like Zapier.
What's an example, do you think, Andy, like a traditional business, services business that could like completely be changed by what's out there today or what's coming?
Accounting,
Oh,
FP&A.
yeah.
Yeah.
Legal. Oh, my
HR,
God.
recruiting.
Yeah.
I like Siki's here, so I'm hesitant to say that, but I think he
That's
is
why I'm
really
laughing.
onto something in the vertical he chose. Whether it is luck or skill, I will not give that away, but he is really well positioned in general. Accounting is to a large degree very similar from company to company. You can train domain specific models. You can categorize stuff between organizations. Travel typically looks like the same vendors. And this had been a very manual process in the past.
Too big
And
to actually build accounting software. So.
I hear you. You play accounting adjacent. Let's do
Yeah.
it like that. I think it's a very interesting space. I think there are a lot of them. I think customer success, CSM,
Yeah, totally.
is very interesting. You can adopt deflection bots and really help prioritize level 1 support tickets instead of like second or third priority tickets.
Right.
And I think Julian said it in legal. I think Harvey has done pretty well in selling legal software. Even Up is doing pretty well on the legal space. So there's definitely a large opportunity. I actually
I
met
would have
a
said,
lawyer.
it's like I would have said a year ago, oh, but you can't delegate judgment to AI. But
Mhm,
actually you can.
Yeah.
mhm.
And that's the part that's fucked up to me, is that it used to be, okay, like someone can read a legal, like you could get an LLM to read a legal contract and even have a bunch of precedents that it could understand well. But would that really be exercising judgment? And let's say how someone could take advantage of a contract, and therefore what clauses you include
Right.
that would need to involve, they would need to be in the contract to ensure that the human being on the other side were being sufficiently constrained in a situation where there were bad faith. But now it actually is good enough. And so you could, a low level contract that is not that meaningful to you, you could 100% just drop into some kind of bot and
Yeah.
you're fine. So that's $500 or whatever of
Mhm.
legal fees that were just like evaporated. And that's productivity gains, right? That can go somewhere else.
There is a company out there called Evisort that literally does this for legal teams. It's contract analytics, telling you what exactly is going on in a specific contract or at scale across your legal org. And it's not focused on replacing humans. It's focusing on making the lawyer more powerful today
Mhm.
and augmenting them. And so what you end up getting is you get significant amount of leverage. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, that is actually how we think about AI internally at Runway. So I often say to the team, I want Runway to never be more than 100 people. And
Right.
I think the right way to think about scaling a company today is instead of scaling headcount, you can scale with increasing leverage of AI. And it just makes work so much more fun. You know, a person can do the work of like 1.5 probably people today, but you can make that to 10, 100 over the next couple of years.
Saying
This,
all of this,
this is why Siki is a good fundraiser, is because he'll say things like this.
yes, he
It's
is.
literally,
Get
he's like, we don't even need to scale headcount. We're just going to have 50 people at our business. And some idiot will believe it, right? Really believe it. I feel like I am one half the time. It's impressive. That's all I'm saying.
And yet, on the other side of this, we could have gone back to 2021, and there were companies like Fast out there building one-click checkout with 500 employees to get to $1 million of revenue.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
that was a crazy time. Do you now saying this and kind of thinking about like the innovator's dilemma, we're all talking about like new companies being started and really ingraining in that into the organization. Do we think that like this is going to create a wave of like brand new companies that are able to exactly how Siki's positioning his company is like, we're going to use AI as much as we possibly can, the latest and greatest, and we're going to keep hopefully a cap on headcount and scale hopefully revenue exponentially and keep like the headcount at least linearly or maybe even flat. Um, do you think that there is going to be a wave of companies that are going to disrupt the kind of the incumbents? Because like, like the Salesforces of the worlds or even the Facebooks or Googles, like it's going to be really hard to get them to change how they're currently doing things. So is this a massive time, like in a moment in time for startups to really like disrupt these massive incumbents with just the reduced labor force or increased productivity or all these things, utilizing all of these different AI services?
So I think yes and no. I think distribution is a real moat to a large degree here
Mhm.
if the org actually prioritizes and moves fast. I have spoken. It's interesting. A VC said this to me a few months ago. So we were looking to fund the next generation AI centric Zapier, and what we've realized over the last 4 months is that company is Zapier. And so you start to see 15-year-old companies that can have real acceleration in their business because they're able to appropriately leverage AI and move fast. Yes, this is the age old innovator's dilemma. If you move slow, will you be run over? Probably. But for well run companies that embrace technology, there is a large opportunity here. I mean, it's interesting to think about Microsoft as the example. I mean, they are literally putting AI into everything. They have agent products, they have their Copilot, They have writing assistants. They have a version of Clippy that finally might work, and so much more. And then I think you're seeing Google start to react. And it's interesting to watch this play out.
So do you think that the innovator's dilemma, given that all these companies know they need to keep up with the latest tech trends, that is not happening as much as it did historically? As companies before it, like I don't know, give some examples, maybe the IBMs or some of the older companies were not able to keep up with the latest technologies. And now that there's just so much education out there, it's like you need to adapt these new technologies to stay relevant. Do you think that the innovator's dilemma is just kind of slowed down?
Well, I mean, I live in New York, so I've been seeing IBM's Watson ads for the last 15 years. I'm convinced they invented AGI. If anyone knows what Watson does, please let me know.
With
Um,
salespeople.
yeah, they sell a body shop. That's exactly
I
what they
mean,
do.
I think it's yes and right, like distribution, existing data and customers and product surface area is an amazing application. But then you look at like business model disruption and different product expression. So the best example I can think of is, let's see, how old is Google? It's like 25-ish years now. There's never been a better search engine than Google until last year. And
Right.
Perplexity is a better search engine than Google.
Yeah.
And it is hard to disrupt. Like that was never possible before.
Right.
And they
Right.
built it in a way where Google is going to have a really hard time creating that experience. Why? Because, they have 25 years and 90% of the revenue comes from people clicking on the blue links that link to website.
Right.
Right.
And not that, right? And Perplexity charges a subscription fee, completely different business.
Right.
And so I think there's like a universe of things like that, right? That both make it more efficient and valuable for companies and products and create new opportunities for startups, probably more than there's ever been.
I
Yeah,
think there's. Oh, go for it, Andy.
I think I think the answer is it depends. It really does. I think you're seeing companies that have reaccelerated their growth because of AI. You have seen, on the other hand, you're seeing companies blaming they're losing their competitive moat. And it really does come down to the execution of the org, the business model you have. And I think how you embrace it and how you adopt it. But I wouldn't be I would be shocked to find out that there's any company out there that hasn't had a code red moment at their board level.
Mm.
And that hopefully happened last year or maybe even the year before, where they said, what are we going to do? How are we going to embrace this? How are we going to adopt it? And how does it change the future outlook? Because this can
Mhm.
easily be an accelerant. It can also be a fire.
Of course. I think one other thing that we haven't really talked about, we're talking a lot about like the software side of things, but I'll definitely go into like the stuff that I've been paying a lot of attention to in the logistics world. So I think logistics, manufacturing are like industries that can be like completely changed with AI, which is essentially robots and computer vision and different software and all these different things. Like even at as simplest terms, like you think of going to going to McDonald's, and instead of actually placing an order with somebody, you have a kiosk, and then that kiosk is in the drive-through, and you completely replace that, and now you can talk to it instead of actually manually pressing buttons and everything like that. I think in the I'll speak to the logistics side of things, like you're able to not only replace like the people that you need, like say in a warehouse, like one for one, but you're able to with different technology, different computer vision, different models, you're able to get actual real leverage. So like you're able to process like 100x the amount of say orders or whatever you're getting out of your warehouse with different systems. And I think that is going to change like the cost of goods from both manufacturing and actually getting things to you in a way that I think that it's definitely is an industry that has a slower adoption curve. And that's one of the reasons like at Airhouse, where we're a marketplace for fulfillment companies. And I thought that they would adopt a lot more of this robotics and everything, but they haven't. But it's out there and it's coming. And so I think that it's much more broad than kind of the generative AI and all of this stuff that is going to come. And it's going to come in hopefully in like cheaper goods, higher quality goods, all of these things. And there's a number of other industries out there that are going to take like really great advantage of all of, and also even like the tailwind of AI and how much is getting funded and all of these and into these companies. I think there's a lot of different areas than just like the stuff that we read, the perplexities or chat GPT or anything like that that we read in the news that is going to change the world.
So you could look at Kevin Kelly and what technology wants, right? Kind of an old classic. And what he would have said is it's like technology is always looking to grow and looking to find new usage, almost as if it's an entity, almost as if it's alive.
Yeah.
And so just like the fucking plants in my neighborhood that I was trying to kill, it's trying to multiply, and it is looking for entry points. And so likewise, AI and eventually imagine AGI will look for entry points in industry through forms of productivity. And also actually from a B2C standpoint, also look for productivity gains, but the productivity gains will be more like moments of insight or moments of delight, where the human being is like, whoa, like I just did with my ability to annihilate an entire ecosystem on my blog. And so like you'll have these moments of major productivity gains and it'll just blow someone's mind. And so you can kind of look towards that, right? I was having a customer call, like a sales call this week, where the dude was talking to us about a feature that we had initially spec'd out and said, oh, it's like kind of a boring detail, but it's like, we were looking at capacity planning for our product, because when you have a certain number of service professionals, to figure out how busy they are. And by figuring out how busy they are, then able to predict how many people you need for how many transactions. It's a super boring thing in our industry, but instead of a dashboard that we have to build on a custom basis for this specific feature, we're just query your own database using natural language. So like all of this, all of these UI that was needed before is no longer needed.
Mm-hmm.
All of this analysis that we would have done on our own with our own code is obliterated. And so what's the natural version of that? It's like upload all of your data and boom, here's all of the queries that you need. And here's the ability to kind of place them like a dashboard on a custom basis. And they just update. And you never had to talk to a data scientist. You never had to talk to an engineer. We never had to actually build the interface. It just kind of like magically happens. So like now what do we spend our time doing? So we can have so fewer people doing the work and doing so much less grunt work than before.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great point. What do you guys see like for any cycle? And I think we're all on the same page, even if Andy disagrees and thinks I'm an AI hater, which I'm fucking not. I just don't.
You were though. You were.
Just you really were. Like we
really
can play back the tape.
We play back the tape where I said that I didn't think it was actually going to happen. My question's always just been when. It's obviously going to happen. AGI is going to happen, but over what time frame?
If only I had an AI tool with a transcript that I was hoping all the bullshit Kevin said about AI right 8 months ago.
Well, you should have loaded that before. You should have loaded that before we did this and actually prove me wrong.
And I could.
Well, my question here. Okay, let's get a little spicy here. Who do you think? So with any like really rapid rise in a new technology paradigm, there's obviously people that take advantage of it. Like we saw that with crypto. There was so many grifters. Like what are you guys thinking on here? I don't know if we want to throw some actual products under the bus, but there's a lot of like super like useless, in my opinion, products out there that people are making a ton of money off of.
Oh man, Rabbit R1.
Yeah.
Humane.
Humane
No, is so much worse than Rabbit R1.
No. I can't say much, but Humane is I'm not a fan of Humane, but the founders are like kind of like off-putting, but also like pretty legitimate background. And,
Right.
they have some technology there. It's not very good. The R1 is in a different category. It is the equivalent, I think, of a crypto rug pull, but the first crypto rug pull in AI.
Rabbit R1 is the best Ponzi scheme I have ever seen on
It is
Twitter.
incredible.
Humane is bad execution with great
Yes.
founders. I agree with you there.
That is
Great
true.
founders and had potential. I don't know what happened. Rabbit R1 is a rug. There's
Okay, so
nothing real there.
so Humane. Okay, so we have super smart founders. How did they get this so wrong?
I got a vibe, and the vibe reminds me of me and my worst. What I mean by that is sometimes you have this vision and you're
Yeah.
like, I'm just going to build that thing. And there's going to be a sort of cult-like religion internally about it. And it's going to be amazing and magical. The world is wrong. And we're going to show the world what is actually needed because we built the iPhone and we're going to do it again.
Right.
That is maybe something that works if you are actually Steve Jobs with his experience running Apple. If you're a designer working for Steve Jobs, you might think that you can do that, but no, most people can't. Like,
Right.
just about everyone in the world cannot do that. And so that vibe, I think, led to what I can only perceive externally as like a very insular culture where they didn't care about like what other people thought. And like you translated feedback in a way where it's like,
Right.
well, they're just wrong. It'll be
Right.
okay.
Right.
I think
And
also, I think what people underestimate here is, I don't know, Humane raised what, like $200 million, Siki? Is that about right?
something around
Something
there.
like that.
So I think people underestimate the actual budgets some of these projects have at Apple. When Apple wants a better, when Apple needs better product features, they go build a custom processor. That
Mhm.
takes billions of dollars. And working at Apple, you're actually in this bubble where you can actually bend the laws of physics. Then when you leave, you're stuck with the Qualcomm Snapdragon processor. You have to deal with the battery life. You have to deal with the limitations of the OpenAI voice model. You don't have 800 people and $10 billion committed to a project plus CapEx. And I think that's just a rude awakening. And I think that's why it's been so hard for so many people over the years to build consumer hardware, because Apple can literally invent a new chip, new tooling, etc., a new manufacturing process, and the rest of us can't.
Right. And obviously there's probably a lot of devices that Apple has made, or any of these companies with huge budgets that have actually made and done a lot of user testing, and they just flop and they probably don't even release them at all. So that's something that startup obviously cannot do. I think that the Rabbit R1 raised a lot less capital, right? I want to say it was like 20 million or something like that.
Yeah. So
The Rabbit R
Humane is 230 million. Lackey Groom, Mark Benioff, a bunch of investors. The $20 million seed for Rabbit includes Khosla. So,
Legit.
not nothing. But they've only raised something like 50 million. So it's meaningfully different.
I think my biggest surprise so the Humane team, we're saying it, but I respect that team. They are very solid founders. They took a big swing. The Rabbit team, and they are very real technologists, and it's a very impressive team they hired, etc. Yes, they got it wrong, but they have been successful in the past, and I think they'll be successful in the future. The Rabbit R1, on the other hand, is literally a phone without a screen. Or rather, a phone without a phone.
Right.
And I don't know what to do with it. The other interesting thing is the Rabbit R1, I never expected it to ship so fast. Like, I thought this was going to be one of those Kickstarters from 2015 that 2.5 years later actually delivered something decent. They literally just shipped
It's the greatest launch marketing I've ever seen.
I continue
Ever.
to see
Ever,
so
ever
many
seen.
ads. Yeah, yeah, and
Like
their
the,
keynote or whatever was great.
the keynote was ridiculous, and like the branding though, it's a content. Like okay, the actual keynote was like, let's call it Temu Apple keynote, but like
Right.
what the actual like content was like, we invented a new foundational model, the large action model. And I'm like, that is such an amazing piece of branding for something that literally does not fucking exist. There is no foundation model. Large action models are the
Sneaky,
thing.
fake it till you make it,
Siki, I
right?
asked you what was a large action model the day this came out, and you and I were like scratching our head, being like, "What is this?"
So we found out, like people dug into this, and it's like, it's made up. It's like an open source, like router thing that doesn't, it's completely made up. There is no foundational. It is I think like, this is what I mean when where like there is a high level of trust generally in Silicon Valley technologists where it's like, you say a thing and people are like, okay, I'm going to give you the benefit of doubt you did a thing. And this is an exploit of that. It's like, okay, we're just going to say this is a new foundational model. Like, oh, really? Wow. And you can deploy and people will look at you and buy the red one and give you $10 million.
As someone who started a legitimate AI-based hardware company and has really scaled it and delivered a product, I am completely appalled. I have to say that on the record here. Um, I think the best quote I saw for the Rabbit R1 is from The Verge, an unfinished, unhelpful AI gadget. And I think that really, like, I don't know where you go from there, but I do still see the ads. And I would love to, Kevin, I know it's true that you bought one. Come clean now.
I did not buy that shit. And
Kevin, you've been
I
telling our
also
group chat.
I did not buy the
Isn't that it in the
Apple.
corner? You see it right there in the corner. Isn't that it right there?
You told all of us how amazing it was on the WhatsApp group that we have, and you tried to get the rest of us to buy
Finally,
it.
something in my hand that I get answers for. Finally. Oh, I've been missing this. What a great invention. If you guys were to forget your actual companies or day jobs that you're going right now. If you were gonna build something right now, like today, like what are some like ideas that other people listening could actually like now that we have, and also to give context, like OpenAI, didn't they start now what 10 years ago, 8 years ago? So like these companies take a long time to build, but like
It's 10 years old now. I think it was 7
Yeah.
years before GPT-3, if I recall correctly.
yeah,
So it's 10 years in.
crazy. So this is really obviously hard stuff, but like now that there is some sort of foundation, is there any ideas that you guys would go, well, obviously the real ideas you're not going to say here. But any any areas that you guys would go into?
I think something incredibly interesting is pretty much a lot of the legacy SaaS that involves around ticketing that can be powered by agents. I think horizontal agents, but even more importantly, vertical agents in specific functions is going to be one of the biggest waves. I actually think this is the next SaaS, and people have yet to see it. And so I'm very bullish on that as a category. For more predictions, you have to really talk more shit to Kevin, please.
I think that Andy said it a different way. So, the most obvious opportunity that everyone has experienced is like ChatGPT. So
Right.
ChatGPT is like just a raw interface into the foundational model. You talk to it, you get a response back. I think the two generally like most important axes of progress is one, context, having it know more about
Right.
you and your company and everything that happens, right? And so there's integrations. That's one. But the second thing is with most implementations of AI today, I had this like tweet that I tweeted a few weeks ago, and you ever seen the purple magic sparkle emoji? And I called it, the purple like 3 little stars, and it's like I called it the universal symbol for a mid AI implementation in SaaS products. basically like everyone's trying to do like some version of a chat, like chat with your whatever. And the other axis of improvement is you don't have to ask it to do something to do something,
Right.
right? It
Right.
doesn't do anything until you talk to it today with chat. So if you have something that knew a lot of things about
Yeah.
whatever you're doing,
I like that
and it will
graph.
do things on its own, there is like a universe of things you could build around it.
Which of these arcs changes first, Siki? I think I have my personal answer, but go ahead and give yours.
I mean, sales is a pretty big one. I mean, we are customers of some tools, for example, Automatica is one I recently invested in. And it's pretty incredible. Like it basically rolled a bunch of tools together, but anyone who goes to your website, who visits it, it does a sort of like a reverse search and knows who they are. Then you can like have like LLM filters to qualify them automatically, have a send email automatically. So like, it's just a thing, outbound sales thing that runs itself. You just put it on your website. Stuff like that is super interesting. You don't have to do anything with it. I think like the category of like, I generally call this, and there's a few, I've looked at a few companies, I invested in one of them, but generally this idea of like a AI chief of staff is super compelling because, you know, once you're past like 15 or 20 people, you can no longer physically keep up with everything that happens in your company, but
Right.
AI can. They can be in every meeting. You know, they can be in every document and they can tell you like, here's the things that's happening in your company that may be important that you didn't hear about. Right. And that requires a lot of context, intelligence, proactiveness. But yeah, there's like a universe of ideas that you could do.
Andy, this
Yeah.
is basically what Vowel did.
Yeah, it is. I was kind of actually sitting here thinking, Siki, what's your favorite? Because now that we're at Zapier, we're focused much more on Zapier Central, which is our horizontal agent platform and our Chrome extension. So what's your favorite in this space?
My favorite product in this space. Um, I use something called Maestro, which I am also an investor in. And that is basically the chief of staff idea that I actually use. And it links your Slack, Notion, as well as Crane. And I'm trying to get it to video recording. It's just like all of these like integrations take a bit of time. I just get what's called it's equivalent of a presidential daily brief in my inbox in the morning. It's like, here's everything that happened. And
Oh,
I
that's
can
cool.
listen and ask it like, okay, what I care about, I can customize different categories, different projects. And so, yeah, I think to get this right too, like, we were talking about the end of software and I think like, it's not quite so simple. And we think about this at Runway too. Like it's not quite so simple. Like you take a thing that exists and you just like put AI on top of it.
Right.
There's a lot of substrate that you have to build to make the AI useful and feed it the right context, right? So you need to build a lot of technology, for example, for the chief of staff thing. You probably need to figure out a graph of like all the people in the company and what are they working on? What are your projects? Right. And from that sort of like information, then you can like create useful reports. And so it's not quite so simple. Like let's just look at everything and like create a report or summarize it.
Yeah, it's interesting. It almost feels like that'll work much better with a large company because you actually have Active Directory. So you can pull from Okta and
Yeah.
other places and understand user groups
Yeah.
and actually map it out much more. You could do Chart
Yeah.
Hop, Bamboo, Workday, etc.
I mean, you find grain, right? You can take that and cross it with like, who are people actually talking to, right? Where do people spend the most time with each other in meetings and in calendar events and in Slack? To get a sense of like, oh, actually, like there's like a group that's not even on Okta. Like they're talking all the time. What is it?
Right.
What are we talking about?
Yeah, this use case is very near and dear to my heart. And I want to see somebody really succeed in this space.
Yeah.
I'm really so there's a few companies that have so just for context, what is ChatGPT? What's their current ARR right now? Is like $1 billion or something like that?
There's a couple hundred million. I don't
A
know.
couple hundred million? Okay.
Yeah, I'm not.
And
I don't know.
Perplexity is probably number 2 in this space, and they're
Perplexity is about 20 million right now.
so
It's
what I found really interesting is the reacceleration, and I'm not sure if you guys use this or anybody in your team, but Canva. I think this like probably doubled or quadrupled their revenue, and they're already at I think like $1 billion
Yeah.
run rate. But just by having, I'm pretty sure it's just the AI generated imaging that marketers and everybody was using. So like that's a great example where it just like really reaccelerated something that it really is AI enabled, and they already had really great customers who loved it. I was extremely surprised by that. Do you guys use Canva?
Yeah.
I actually don't.
But it's a good example of how, because Canva is at the very bottom. It's just like anyone, they don't know how to make a website. Like they're barely technical, if at all. And it is a representation of how AI can be a form of wish fulfillment on top of the base desire.
Right.
It
Yeah,
makes
The
sense.
base desire is present, and then there's nothing else, no ability to execute on top. And Canva will just be like, no problem. Like, here's all the stuff. And
Yeah.
if you can execute on that base level, you can do incredibly.
Well, and also
This-
you're going to say distribution, obviously, too, right, Andy?
No, I was going to say this
Oh.
makes total sense why Kevin uses this.
Why I use Canva?
Wow. Wow.
I use it.
Canva's great. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it helps you make posters. My kid uses it to make like flyers. It's
Also-
stigma for the rest of us, right? Like nobody actually if you're not a designer, you don't want to like be drawing lines. Just want to
Also, Riverside is great. Descript is great. A lot of these tools are really great, and they're just getting
Yeah.
better. Descript just launched today a way to make clips of a podcast that will just it'll recommend you 6 clips, and you put them out there. We'll see how that works, but a lot of interesting things that are happening out there.
Actually a really interesting example of sort of like an incumbent product taking out the air, because there's a app called Reap.ai, REAP,
Yeah.
that does exactly that. It takes a video and creates the clips. When now it's like, well, the script just has it, so I might as well just use the thing I already use.
Yeah, it's like an example of like a compound startup, right? Like what
Yeah.
Rippling is kind of done, and I think that's and
It's just-
a lot of different players.
Speaking to founders that are just next level, Andrew Mason, who doesn't need to do anything, to be clear, just goes in. And how many years is he into Descript?
A
8.
lot, yeah.
It's his third. I don't know why I put 8 here. I was like, it's his third business. He's 8 years in. It's his third business. And the dude is just like, you never see him on any video anywhere. He's not promoting himself. It's just the product. And the dude is executing like crazy. It's just impressive to see people like that. And you hear nothing but good things about this product.
How do we get him on here?
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Do you
I
think?
do have his email address. You want me to shoot it off and
Please,
see what
yeah,
happens?
of course, that'd be
you have-
amazing.
we love his product here, so you have to do that.
Do you think?
I will email him. I will.
But also remember, in his previous company, God damn it, what was the huge company, public company?
Groupon.
That it was Groupon, yeah.
and detouring.
Yeah, Groupon, he was everywhere, right? I think of him very similar to Travis from Uber, right? They got basically like famous, and then they went on to do other things, and like you don't hear anything from Travis, but he's got a massive company holding. I think probably just like being in the limelight probably takes its toll on you a lot. But also maybe Descript is not as sexy as a product as Groupon was.
From an ARR standpoint, I bet it's plenty sexy, especially as a consumer application. I'm sure it's doing.
Yeah. All right. Well, why don't we wind this down? Any parting thoughts?
Yeah, I want to say thanks to Kevin for being a really good sport today. I came.
What do you
into
mean? I
this-
still deny everything that he says. I'm not being a good sport about shit.
folks.
Dude,
For
wind it
anyone
back.
who
Wind it back. Get you feed all these videos into your AI and let's ask it.
if only we had an instant replay.
All right,
Well, I
let's end
hope
it.
everyone enjoyed
let's end
this
it there.
one. We tried to make it a little fun for everyone out there.
All right. Thanks everyone for listening. See you guys.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.